administration. He is keeping a close eye on these protests in Iran, and the administration is making it clear that they are standing with the people who have taken to the streets to protest against their government. In fact, the president himself using the powerful pulpit of his Twitter feed to send a clear message to those protesters. The president tweeting last night, quote, "Many reports of peaceful protests by Iranian citizens fed up with their regime's corruption and its squandering of the nation's wealth to fund terrorism abroad. The Iranian government should respect their people's rights to include, that should include their right to express themselves."
Our show here, we all heard about the protest in Iran. It started a few weeks ago, I think 27 December last year. People start protesting in a small town, and then this catch up in a big city, and people on the streets demanding change, demanding political change, economic change, and a lot of people wondering what the Iranian wants and what behind this protest. We have here a very special guest. He's been following this. Jay Shahidi is a human rights activist. You know him. Is with Human Rights United Nations chapter here in Minnesota. Welcome to Bil Ahdan,
Thank you.
Jay
Nice
Shahidi.
being here.
It's been a while, and it took us a while to learn somebody to come and talk to us about the Iranians protest, and because the news now are very skimpy and limited. I'm sure they shut down the internet and they limit the news coming out of, and anybody says something negative about the government is traitor. So take us through this protest when it started 3 weeks ago. Why do the Iranian protest, and what do they want? What is their demands, and the reaction of the people in power there? And we're going to delve also on the reaction from Trump administration. So take it from there.
Of course, the situation is very complex. The protests really started with the fundamentalist right-wing clergy and their supporters in the holy city of Mashhad in the northeast, the second largest city of Iran. The protest was against the moderate president, Rouhani, and his approach to the West and his nuclear deal. So it started with really within the establishment because there are people who believe no contact should be made with the West, that we can't trust America, that America and Israel are bent on bombing and destroying Iran. At the same time, the young people, the progressives, have been trying to bring change to the system in a democratic way. So in a way, the protests in Iran are signs of some kind of democratic movement. Otherwise, they would have been shot. I mean, can you look at China, for example, with their openness, with everything that has been happening, or look at Russia. We have a one-man dictator in Russia who just basically
Egypt doesn't have to go that far.
Yeah,
Egypt
was moving toward democracy until some major powers supported El-Sisi to come and establish dictatorship for the expediency of time, for the so-called interests of the West or America or Israel. This is the kind of mistake that, let's say, the United States has made. Instead of supporting people, often the United States supports regimes. But in this case, the United States doesn't like the regime in Iran because they are adversaries. And so the protest started, then other groups in Iran, started protesting because it's really about the anniversary of the time that the revolution began in 1978 and 79. The Shah left on January 16, which is today. And the protest started by some group of pro-government, pro-regime people to celebrate the anniversary of the revolution. But then other groups, there are a lot of disgruntled groups, young people who have 2-3 college degrees and deliver pizza. The population of Iran has become very educated and has almost tripled in 70 years. So these people want change. Yes, there is some level of dictatorship. Yes, there is a system of theocracy. Yet when we compare Iran, and I know some people are going to get mad at me, but when we compare Iran with some of the great powers or supposedly friends of the United States, like Saudi Arabia, like China, like dictatorships all over the world, but as long as they serve the economic interests of the United States and the oil or uranium, we don't complain about them. But in this case, I guess I like the protests, and even the president of Iran just a few days ago said people have a right to protest, and
but also he said this is disingenuous statement from him, because they have the right to protest, but also not violent, and they accuse him of being this and that, an agent and agitator from outside. But the problem is there is a grievances out there.
Absolutely.
There is an economic hardship.
Expectations. Iranians have become educated, worldly. They have televisions, internet, and cell phones.
But the
they
people
know
who
what's
started
possible.
the revolution, they are not uneducated. They started in a small town, and they were not different than 2009.
2009 was more intense, larger. This time is not as large, but there are all kinds of people. Women want more freedom. They don't want the dress code. Young people want to be more open to dress, to act. And then there are basic stuff like food prices, inflation. And those are the. So one reason people are protesting Iran's support to Hezbollah and Hamas and other groups, or sending weapons to Yemen, is because of their own economic problems. They figure, well, the government should spend the money in Iran for the desperate Iranians. Yes, there is poverty, but overall, again, if you compare Iran to other countries around there, they've moved somewhat toward a democracy under the theocracy of Shia Islam. That's what the way they look at it, that yes, we do have democracy, because there has been power struggles between the spiritual leader and the presidents, and right now President Rouhani has been trying to establish a base for himself. He risked, with the nuclear agreement, he risked his own position because the right-wingers were against it. But what is happening when President Trump jumps on the bandwagon the next day and interferes in the internal affairs of a country, how would we like? There have been protests against Trump every day almost somewhere.
Yeah.
How would you like the government of Iran come and support one group or the other who are protesting in front of the White House?
But there was a protest, a pro-government protest in Iran. It seems like it's the same formula that Egypt used, and always, Al-Sisi will send, hire thugs and hire people, send them from government positions.
Yes.
To go
Some of that protest is legitimate. There are great numbers, according to information I get from Western and Iranian sources. The regime in Iran still has a great support. I don't know if it's the majority, but some of those demonstrators were ordered to come. They're government people, they're military people, they're people who are benefiting from the state. And when orders come that you have to go protest in favor of the government, people do it, which is not democratic. I'd like Iran to move away from that. But the question is, when we go interfere in somebody's domestic affairs, like we interfered in Egypt, they had a democratically elected government after the fall of Mubarak. And if we didn't like him, we should accept them. We should still negotiate with them. We should still do business with them, not go help somebody to overthrow him.
And we still pay the price right now. The Egyptians are still paying the price. He's running, we talk about democracy in this part of the world. It's a laughable thing. It
is laughable, but when are they going to learn to engage in democratic system? It has to come with education. Despite all their faults, the Ayatollahs in Iran have put schools and universities and colleges in almost every village in the last 30 years. Iranian people are becoming educated. They have allowed technology to come in. Mostly to strengthen their own powers, because all regimes want to stay in power, all work for their own self-interest. The regime in Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, wants to stay in power as long as he can. He sometimes manipulates everything in order to keep himself and his own party in power. All governments do that. My point is, if we want Iran to move toward democracy and openness and free enterprise more, and political freedom to the extent that's possible, then we have to let them engage in these protests, and all governments crash down on protests that become violent.
But also, Jay, you know, when you talk about the American and Israelis interfering is an Iranian affair. I mean, the Iranians are the one.
I think it's mostly Saudi Arabia.
And Saudi Arabia, I'll give you that. But I mean, the one who's interfering is in Yemen, or Syria, and Lebanon, and these are the Iranians.
Yes.
So I mean, we cannot have it both ways.
Right.
Both
of
that's
them.
how I mean, Iran is a regional superpower.
I wish that Saudi Arabia, Iran, the US, everybody would go to the UN and go through our international system of law, which is the United Nations, to resolve differences. But countries act in so many ways, either overtly or secretly. Right now, the danger in Iran is that President Trump's words and actions is giving more support and power to the right-wing anti-Americans. Is alienating the pro-American people of Iran. Now, we've had all kinds of observers go there, including the great Thomas Friedman of New York Times, and they say people on the street admire American culture, American way of life. They are critical of the American government.
They want fast food and fast movies. But you know, what is the Iranian Americans? What's their stand on this? I mean, it seems very
Iranian
quiet
Americans,
and they don't
very
seem visible.
Divided. Right now in the United States, I would say, if not half, 40–50% probably, I'm not sure, I haven't taken polls, but they want this regime to be overthrown. There are people right here in Twin Cities who either belong to the government of the former regime, to the government of the last Shah, or lost property or fled Iran, or people who are, for ideological reasons, religious reasons, like religious minorities who got scared. There was some oppression, there was people got scared and left. They want this government to overthrow. So the Iranian community in the United States, I would say a great number of them are just saying, yes, 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 America, go interfere and let's overthrow this. And then there are left-wingers like the so-called Marxist Islamist group, which was called, it's called MEK. They're very highly educated people. I've known them personally. They're very educated people, engineers, doctors, and
well, the one who came here first.
I think they want this regime gone because they believe the only way to get back there and set up a so-called democratic system in Iran is by forcing these people out militarily. And history shows that that's wrong, because when you overthrow a regime militarily or by force or by war, the next regime often becomes worse.
Oh, if they came through ballot box, they shouldn't live out by
so
bullets.
If Iran has moved towards some degree of democracy in the last 20 years after the revolution and the 10-year period of Ayatollah Khomeini, which was very harsh, but they move toward openness. They move toward rapprochement with Europe. And right now, regarding their nuclear deal, Europe is breaking away from the United States. I think President Trump's attempts is alienating Europe, alienating Iran, alienating Iranian neighbors.
In 1 minute left to hear, what do you see the future of this protest?
Well, I guess I would hope the protests would continue in civilized, peaceful, democratic ways.
You can't control what's happening in the street. Can you?
the government...
Do they have leadership? Do they have vision?
No, it's very spontaneous, kind of like 2009. Different groups are coming out on the street, and there is some hooligans and hoodlums who just want to stir trouble. You know, I remember when I was in Iran in high school that we just loved to go out and protest and throw stones at the police. Some of that is there too. But the government of Iran should heed the legitimate concern of Iranian people, which is economic improvement, political freedom, and if they don't, they can get into more trouble themselves. So 2009 was a lot more intense, but they suppressed it harshly. But this time it is not as widespread. Some media have tried to make it look like it's a big deal, but most commentators say Iran is very much in control. Iranian government is very much in control. And the danger I see now, there is the whole effort by President Obama and President Rouhani and their governments to bring the countries together and have them join the European and Western and international group of nations. That's really being damaged now. Iran is becoming now moving back toward becoming more isolationist. The former CIA agent and commentator at CNN, Robert Baird, just said the other day that Iran will be forced to go and build a bomb secretly. And that is the danger. Once Iran builds a bomb, then Saudi Arabia wants a bomb, then Iraq wants a bomb. So that's the danger we are facing. How do we quiet things down instead of provoking them?
Well, that will be up to I think, the Iranian people. Well, thank you so much, Jay.
محمد مرسي، عصام محمد شريف إمام، أحمد جمال محمد رضوان، أحمد علي محمد علي، أحمد عيسى عبد المنعم سيد، أحمد مرسي أحمد الخولي، أشرف عيد محمود عبد المعطي، الحسن عبد الرافع محمد، خضير شعبان خضير فضل، عمرو نصر.
Thank you.
On my personal level and also on my birthplace, Egypt, not because our racist president here called our country a shithole country, African, Haiti, and all of this. No, this is because yesterday, General Sisi and his cronies and his justice system and his court and his kangaroo courts sent my nephew to 15 years in prison for being in a wrong place at the wrong time, being in the street, peacefully protesting the military coup among us. He's been in detention for 5 years without any trial, without seeing his day in court. But yesterday, he saw his day in court and he was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for what they call disturbing public security, disobeying police order. You know, something here to be misdemeanors. But they send a group of people, more than 300 people, to life in prison and 15 years and so on and so forth. Every week, the kangaroo court of El Sisi sent people to their deaths, 10, 15, 5, every single week, a summary execution, using the legal court, using the legal procedure as an oppressive tool to get rid of their opposition, to eliminate anybody that voice any dissent. General Sisi is the worst dictator Egypt have ever seen. We are not a shithole country. Our problem that we have a shithole regime, a shithole generals. They've been running this country for more than 60 years and they bring it to a halt. So this is what I have to say. As you can see the sign behind me telling General Sisi that free my nephew, and you're not gonna silence us, you're not gonna silence me as long as my nephew and thousands of people political prisoners are detained and in limbo, and turning your legal system to a whore house that just dictate what you are ordering them. You're gonna hear from me every week, every day. Let my nephew go. Okay. Hassan's like his own brother, his own twins brother, Hussein El Adawi, that he went through this and been suffering through this for 5 years. Yesterday, he heard the verdict of sending my nephew to 15 years in prison. Welcome, Hussein, to the show. I'm gonna say Hassan Hussein because growing up, we couldn't really differentiate between the two of you, and so I know it's very hard on you to see your twin brother been unjustly, imprisoned and tortured and mistreated for all these years. Just first, let's start to say, tell us was your feeling when you heard your brother's name called during the trial when they rendered the verdict yesterday?
Uh, Actually, it was so hard to hear something like that because Hassan's life and everyone's life it's just one life and there is no many 15 years to live like that and actually Hassan started to have some pain and some issues with his body. 5 years, it's a very big time in this darkness place and this bad place with this treatment. So it's so hard to deal with this kind of people. There are not like people like us in the city with them. Yesterday with Hassan, he was in the hostel and I watched one of them and I was smiling to. Because I saw my friend, my twins there in the hospital, and I was trying to
Cheer him up.
yes, to cheer him up and say good hi, how are you? It's okay. He shouted and say a very bad words and say go out and don't do anything just like
Who did that? Who shouted and asked you to get
uh,
out?
yeah, a police officer. He was very big man and say it in a very bad way. And why? I'm smiling and I wanna see my twins and I don't have any weapons. I don't have anything. Just my smile. That's my weapon for you.
Scary.
So yeah, scary. Yes, for him. And my smile is scary for them. So I don't know. He's not a human like us to prevent a person, whatever he has, to send his salutes or hug his twins. It's very hard.
How did you end up meeting Hassan? Why was he in the hospital? This is the verdict just happened yesterday, and you saw him
Yes.
yesterday.
Yeah, I saw him and he saw me and my friend. He was making X-rays check for his knees because he started to from maybe 2 years, almost 3 years from his knees because he's something bad and in movements and something like that. So he finally, after 1 year of trying to go to the hospital and make this check, they approved this.
So we understand the mistreatment inside the detention center and jails, and they leave prisoners without treatments, and some of them will actually die in their jail cells. All they know that just their family will just deliver their body, and so the mistreatment of prisoners, that's another punishment that
Yes.
the court and the security use to punish prisoners outside of the law. They're not guilty yet,
Yes,
but they
yes,
are
yes.
mistreated, and some of them are tortured, and some of them actually die from lack of
A
health.
lot of them, a lot of them died inside the prison,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and that's why. Hassan is started to have some issues really, and with his eyes also. He started to reading in a bad way. He and wanna make also another glass, but it's very hard to do that in the prison to make a check. You know, take a lot of إجراءات. I don't know the meaning.
Procedures, yeah, they use the procedures as an oppressive tools to
Yeah.
punish delay. You know, it's been 5 years and he haven't seen his day in court. This is the first time he sees his day in court and have a trial, and they have a verdict, and the verdict
Yes.
was 15 years. And what was the crime? What was he accused of?
Actually, from my point of view, his crime that he was a man, and he's a man, still a man, and wanna see one day his freedom and his country freedom, um, and that's the crime. Actually, Hassan is a very beautiful man, and have a very good heart. He was the first one or the only one in our family know what he is doing and trying, and the first one trying uh, from he was young and trying to make something for himself and try to make a business to get money to something you know, like that. So I don't know what's his crime. They arrested him inside the hostel in the square, another square. uh, I can say I don't know. The question is what he's doing inside the hostel to take it and give him a 15 years of a prison or in this trial. What he's doing. What did you see from Hassan in the hostel in this square to give him 15 years old? I don't know. 15 years. So I don't know what he did actually. So it's very.
What we go from here now? What's now they send it this group sentence, you know, just kind of a random number. I feel like they pull names from a hat and they have 15, 25, whatever. They don't care.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
every individual, every person has a family, extended family. I've seen some of the families coming from southern Egypt, 1,000 miles away, coming from all
Yeah.
over village and small towns to camp
Mm.
around the court or around the prison to see what's going to happen to their kids, and nobody provide them with any information. They are mistreated, they are abused. They have to bribe themselves to bring them some food, some clothes, and you've gone through that. So the idea not just imprison one individual, they are imprisoning the whole family and extended family too.
Yes.
So we really thank you so much. It's really, even the fact that you are here and you're talking and you're telling your story and you smile once with, that is very strong from a young man that his brother is missing for 5 years injusticely, and try to make sense out of this and move on with your life, and hopefully you'll see Hassan again and